From Louisiana beauty queen to late-night queen of lingerie, Rhonda Shear's story is one of reinvention, controversy, and more than a touch of scandal. She rose from Pageants and Playboy spreads to hosting USA Network's Up All Night, where she pushed the boundaries of what late-night television could get away with. But behind the sequined outfits, laughs, and lingerie, there were shocking setbacks, lawsuits, and unexpected turns, including a billion-dollar industry that no one saw coming. How did this Southern belle transform from a TV bombshell into a powerhouse entrepreneur who redefined women's clothing? And what was the dark side of life behind the glittering lights of Hollywood and late-night cable? We have a lot to cover here. There is a miscarriage that no one talks about, the plastic surgery admissions that are argued over, the childhood sweetheart who snuck back into her life, how she started her $100 million company, and of course, politicians who couldn't keep it in their pants. Stay tuned, because once you know the full story of Rhonda Shear, you'll never see her the same way again. Rhonda Shear, entertainer and entrepreneur extraordinaire. Rhonda "Honey" Shear was born in New Orleans, November 12, 1954. Her mother was Jenny Weaker, her father was Wilbur Carl Shear. She has one older sister, Nona, born in 1939, and two older brothers, Melvin, born in 45, and Frederick, born in 47. Rhonda was not only the youngest, she was a very late arrival. With children spread out over almost 16 years, when Rhonda was born, her sister Nona was 15, Melvin was 9, and Frederick was 7. Rhonda's father was Jewish and married her mother 6 months after meeting her on a double date. Her mother loved all things related to beauty, whether that was skincare, makeup, hairstyling, or fashion, and that was right up Rhonda's alley. She grew up loving the spotlight and began taking dance lessons at 2 years of age. When Rhonda was 10 in 1964, her dad was fired from a family auto parts business after taking a week off to have surgery. He borrowed $10,000 from a family friend and started his own business, Fleet Parts and Equipment. In her book, Rhonda says, "It thrived, and with the money from that business, Dad put all of us through college. My two brothers even ran the business alongside him for many years." Rhonda grew up with all the benefits of a very upper middle class. They lived in a house with a pool, and all of their friends and neighborhood kids tended to hang out there, socializing and frequently asking Rhonda's mom, who was fun to talk to and easy to get along with, her advice. As she entered middle school, Rhonda's life began to change. She says, "In primary school, the other kids had made fun of me for my unruly, frizzy hair. But when I started middle school, I became very, very popular, especially with the boys. The power of boobs and the male preoccupation with them, right, ladies? In no time, I had a figure as alluring as my mother's, which of course led some people to presume that I was a different kind of girl than I was. Nothing could have been further from the truth, but all the attention started to give me more confidence." In 1971, when Rhonda was 16, her junior-senior prom was held at a convention center where she happened to meet Governor Edwin Edwards. He was 42 at the time and devastatingly handsome. He had one of his assistants get Rhonda's phone number in case he needed to contact her. He would call her at home and beg her to meet with him. At one point, after Rhonda won a local beauty pageant, he invited her to speak in front of the Louisiana Senate and House of Representatives. The politician was never successful in getting the underage Rhonda's affections, but many years later, Rhonda did a soda commercial with him where he certainly remembered her fondly. Always destined to be an entertainer, Rhonda was putting on her own shows for the military by the time she was 18. She says, "By the time I was 18, the showbiz bug had bitten me hard enough to draw blood. My dancing school friend Trudy Birch and I would choreograph dance routines and perform a USO-style show for the guys and gals at Kessler Air Force Base in Biloxi. My parents loved chauffeuring us around." Rhonda's parents had always pushed all four of their kids to attend college. As she turned 18, Rhonda began attending Loyola University, where she would eventually earn a degree in communications. She had plans on becoming a television reporter and would even consider law school. She graduated in 1977. She also posed for Playboy in 1977. Although she did not pose nude, it was racy enough to create a ruckus, and she ended up going to court when one of her beauty pageant titles was revoked. This perturbed her, and when she got a chance at retribution against the smarmy lawyers she had fought against, she took it. It was in 1978 this gentleman was running for an obscure, arcane public office in New Orleans called Register of Conveyance. She says, "Off I went to City Hall and I registered as a candidate. With the stroke of a pen, I not only became the youngest person ever to run for office in New Orleans, but the first woman to run for office in the entire state of Louisiana." She lost the election by only 135 votes. The gentleman who beat her had many other family members in political spots in the city and state, and he stayed in the office for 30 years afterwards. Rhonda had no interest in the political position anyway. In the summer of 1978, Rhonda finally moved to LA with two of her college friends to pursue a career in entertainment. With her financially comfortable parents helping to foot her bills initially, Rhonda spent her days making phone calls and harassing producers and casting agents, while she spent her evenings studying acting and improv. About her early career, she says, "I had this incredible start in Hollywood. I was getting part after part. Happy Days, Three's Company. At one time, George Shapiro was my manager. He was Jerry Seinfeld's manager. He was really helping me." It's incredible how many appearances Rhonda made. The list includes basically every TV show that was on in the 80s, like Married with Children, Cheers, Dallas, Full House, Happy Days, The Fall Guy, Three's Company, and MTV Oddville. It was quite successful for a young Hollywood starlet, but beneath the surface there was a lot of stress and a lot of unresolved feelings from her mostly happy childhood and her loving parents. In 1984, this boiled over. Rhonda explains, "My father passed away in 1984 and I flipped out. I think I had my own little nervous breakdown to the point where I physically felt I couldn't move. I was on the set of Cheers. I had gotten a Cheers episode. It was a really nice part, and I sat down and I could not stand up. So I took off almost a year and went back to New Orleans and got better. When I came back to LA, it just wasn't the same. Missing that 1 year really hurt me. At the same time, I started wanting to do stand-up comedy. I thought that was my forte to get back. Stand-up was great. It wasn't easy, but I did it." The sitcom Cheers was quite popular at the time. Rhonda had been cast in a recurring role as a flight attendant with brains. She admitted she had always been a bit of a hypochondriac, and on the set of Cheers she experienced psychosomatic illnesses. She traveled back to New Orleans where a doctor put her on some antidepressant medication. It's hard to say how much this hurt her career or even changed the trajectory of her life. When she came back from 1985 until 1991, she was grinding through stand-up comedy shows, battling an industry that was run by men for men. But it was in 1991 that her career turned, with Up All Night.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to USA Up All Night with me, Rhonda.
When I auditioned for Up All Night, there were so many women auditioning, and they all dressed like newscasters. I wore a dress cut really low, and I took my blow dryer out, turned it on during the audition, and pretended like I was blow drying my hair. I was creating a character. If I didn't get the part, I didn't get it, but I was tired of being told I was too sexy to be funny, so I just went for being overtly sexy. I did Up All Night for 8 years, 450 shows. At one point, the Up All Night TV show was broadcast into 90 million households every Friday night. Her popularity in comedy soared, almost entirely due to the familiarity and recognition driven by Up All Night. She worked with or co-headlined with virtually every comic of the era, including Sinbad, George Burns, Don Rickles, John Candy, Joe Piscopo, Ray Romano, Jon Stewart, and Jeff Foxworthy. Rhonda was not afraid of hard work, and she was never shy about self-promotion. She hit the talk show circuit and blanketed the airwaves. She was on The Vicki Lawrence Show, Larry King Live, The Joan Rivers Show, Maury Povich, Sally Jessy Raphael, Night Talk with Jane Whitney, Lisa, The Buzz, and even VH1 Top 21 Countdown. She went on to sit in with The Sybil Shepherd Show, Talk Soup, Extra, Hard Copy, Ricky Lake, The O'Reilly Factor, The Rosie O'Donnell Show, Politically Incorrect, The Richard Bay Show, Geraldo, Mike and Maddie, and The Gordon Elliott Show. Rhonda's love life, much like her career, was colorful and storied. Rhonda's mother had a couple of sexual assault traumas, so as Rhonda and her sister grew up, she always preached to them about the dangers that lurked around every corner and to always be vigilant. This seems to have almost scarred Rhonda, and she was at times almost borderline paranoid about guys and their intentions. But it also served her well, helping her to recognize dangerous or abusive situations as she developed her career in Hollywood. She had short and long relationships with actors, comedians, movie and TV industry executives, politicians, and nobodies. There are 3 relationships I want to touch on here. The first dates back to Rhonda's first few months in Hollywood. She met a director named Art Fisher during an audition. She didn't get the part, but Art asked her out. He was well-known, innovative, and 20 years older than her. They got caught up in a whirlwind romance, and before long, Rhonda discovered she was pregnant. Art was thrilled and wanted her to marry him. But Rhonda was 23, just launching her dream career, and was very worried about pregnancy, weight gain, and putting her career on hold. She was also worried that if her parents found out, they would demand she return to New Orleans, and her Hollywood dream would slip away. She ended up losing the baby. She was somewhat relieved, but Art was disappointed and even furious. They broke up, and even years later, Rhonda was made aware that she might have been the love of Art's life. Another relationship I'll mention was with comedian Bobby Kelton. Rhonda met Bobby on the set of a TV show, Comedy Courtroom. He was brilliant in front of the camera, but socially awkward. Rhonda was with him for 13 years. She has admitted, life is too short to stay with the wrong man for the wrong reasons. Bobby liked taking care of me, but the real reason I was with him for so long was that I could hide behind him. I still carried that mom-induced apprehension about men, and so many men hit on me that if I wasn't feeling brave, I could just tell them I had a boyfriend. Bobby was my shield, which is not a healthy thing. And the last relationship I'll touch on is, of course, Rhonda's husband, Van. My husband's name is Van Fagan. We were junior high sweethearts in New Orleans, and we reconnected 21 years ago through classmates.com. He was divorced a year. We flirted back and forth a little bit, and then I kind of led him on to come visit me in LA. And then at the last minute I broke the date, but he kept writing me letters. This one email really got me. He wrote that we're both free, we're both single, and you could be missing out on meeting the sexiest man alive. We got married in 2001 and moved to Florida in 2004. Their marriage was a crazy, spontaneous thing. They actually reconnected while Rhonda was in New Orleans visiting her family one holiday. They had instant chemistry and were crazy about each other. When Rhonda went to leave to go back to LA, Van was desperate to get her to stay. He proposed, she accepted almost on a whim, and they eloped. This was not a marriage made in heaven. Van lived in a small house in a small town in Louisiana, far away from the Hollywood fast life. Rhonda's career was in a funk, with Up All Night having ended. At the time, she had something like $70,000 in credit card debt. Van owned his own software company, but he fell on hard times and ended up jobless. This was about the time Rhonda reinvented herself once again. Someone told us about this opportunity on Home Shopping Network, that they had lost the person who was doing intimate apparel and that I would be great at it because I was known on Up All Night for wearing sexy stuff. We get there and sold out our first 10,000 units in minutes. We kept coming back and the orders kept getting bigger and bigger. We were vendors at that point. We weren't manufacturing, but we just kept putting the money back in the business. And now we manufacture everything and I design. We began selling the Ahh Bra. It's a comfortable, stretchy bra, and we still sell the heck out of the Ahh Bra. We have 25 employees, 2 warehouses, a design center, and a studio. It has been an amazing journey. Rhonda's Ahh Bra was one of the first undergarments made with a stretchy fabric that was seamless and designed from the get-go to be perfectly comfortable. It was incredibly popular when it launched, spawning countless knockoffs and imitations, and led to similar innovations on many other articles of clothing. She has sold more than 40 million of these bras worldwide. Her move from acting and comedy to clothing and undergarments was a huge surprise, but not far-fetched when you understand the details. Her years of stand-up comedy had trained her to be good in front of a live audience. After spending decades selling herself to producers, casting agents, and entertainment executives, she was uniquely qualified to sell herself, her company, and its goods to the public. In her ditzy, over-the-top, sultry role as late-night host on Up All Night, she had spent countless hours in front of the camera wearing every imaginable costume and piece of lingerie. As a curvy woman who had faced her own insecurities about her body, she knew what women wanted, what they needed, and how to appeal to them. And Van, with his well-practiced mind for business, helped Rhonda where she was weak, with financial acumen and business strategy. Rhonda Shear has always been true to herself, unafraid to be a walking contradiction and basically impossible to stereotype. She considers herself a feminist and a strong supporter of women's rights. In some ways, she was a pioneer for sexy or attractive women in comedy. As Shear Enterprises, her clothing company, grew and she became more wealthy, she has been a habitual donator and supporter of battered and disadvantaged women. Although she was absolutely typecast as a ditzy bimbo, she feels like she used her body and her looks to achieve what she wanted in Hollywood rather than the other way around. And seemingly in opposition to her feminist proclivities, she's gone through 2 different major cosmetic surgeries to improve her looks. She always felt like she had a big nose, and at one point a casting director named Joyce Selznick told her, "Your profile may not look good and could lose parts for you." In consulting with a cosmetic surgeon, she ran into Joan Rivers, who helped convince her to have the rhinoplasty. She also had a boob job. She says, "Back in the 1980s, I had my boobs done for the same reason I had my nose done, for myself. I had a C-cup but didn't love the shape of my breasts. I was losing parts to girls with bigger, shapelier busts. Dr. Hufflin took me from a small C to a nice D-cup." Of course, feminists can have breast augmentations too, but as Rhonda has preached on body acceptance and insisted to her customers over the years that beauty and sexy comes in all different shapes and sizes, it's interesting to note that she had no qualms about making changes to her own body. In 2017, Rhonda published a memoir titled Up All Night. I read this book in researching this video and I would give it a thumbs up. These days, we see Rhonda still happily married and still doing her thing on shopping channels. At the end of the day, people find Rhonda incredibly likable, and despite her looks, it is her personality and her tenacious work ethic that has brought her success. She was dismissed as just another blonde bombshell, but Rhonda Shear had the last laugh, building an empire one bra strap at a time. Her life is proof that fame doesn't fade, it just reinvents. But here's the question, was Rhonda Shear a product of Hollywood's exploitation? Or did she exploit Hollywood right back? Maybe both, and maybe that's why, decades later, we're still talking about her. One thing's for sure, whether on TV at 2 a.m. or on your shopping channel at noon, Rhonda Shear has always known how to keep us watching and keep us up all night.